Okay, good afternoon and welcome to this first in a series of sessions we're going to have as the Amerindian Peoples Association. We plan on having every Friday around the same time over lunch, some simple discussions to help us share a bit about our heritage as Indigenous peoples. Today we have 4 beautiful young ladies with us to tell us a little bit more about their heritage and how they would have grown up, just share a little bit about some of their experiences growing up in their communities. And we hope that you can be with us and have your lunch, have some fly, have some parakari, kasiri, tuma, whatever it is that you have. And join with us as we, talk a little bit about our experiences as Indigenous peoples growing up in our communities. Today, it's the 4th of September, and we have just started the month of September where we celebrate Indigenous peoples' heritage in Guyana. And as a result of that, the APA has decided to talk with some of our young people around Guyana, talk with elders around Guyana, talk with Indigenous peoples around Guyana to hear a bit about their experiences. And we also have Judy Winter, for example, who is joining us from Aishalton. She works with the South Rupununi District Council. So we're hoping that over the next few weeks that we'd be able to share a little bit more about who we are as a people, as Indigenous peoples, who we are, how we identify as Indigenous peoples, and several other things. And even you as people following us can help us in terms of shaping what these discussions can be about by suggesting in our Facebook page under these streams, for example, or you can even inbox us and tell us a little bit more about what are some of the things that you would like to hear us discuss with regards to Indigenous peoples around Guyana. So my name is Michael McGarrell, and I work with the Amerindian Peoples Association. I am Patamona. I'm from Chinopau. And as a matter of fact, we have actually titled these discussions Ina maimu, yetatokon, which translates to, listen to our voices. So I'm from Chinopau. I'm Patamona. I am from the Potaro area. I mean, regionate is divided into 2 subregions, Potaro and Sipruni. Well, 2 main rivers that pass through regionate, and from that we got the Potaro Sipruni. So I'm Pudalugok, and I'm sure Laura will tell you she's Kukuikok because she's from Kukui, all right? And maybe Dawn is Molukakok. And Judy, well, I'm not sure the name of the village, the river close to Judy, but she can tell us more. So what I'd like now is just for each of us to introduce ourselves a little bit, and then we'll talk more about growing up in our community. So we can start with Dawn Stahl, then Judy and Laura in that order.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Um, my name is Dawn Stahl, and I am from Paradise, Santa Rosa Village, Maruca, widely known as Maruca. And it is in Region 1, and Maruca is one of the sub-districts within the region. A little about myself. I spent majority of my entire childhood, I shouldn't say majority, my entire childhood growing up in Santa Rosa Village. I attended the Santa Rosa nursery, primary, and then to secondary. After that, I moved to Georgetown to further my studies and ended up working out here as well. My plan was basically to return to the village and serve the people, but my line of studies would not have created that a space for me to return back home then until later. So I am from a family of 9. I am the third child, and I'm from the Lukuno. So, and one thing that you should know is that, I don't know to speak my language. However, we grew up in Santa Rosa. We only speak English, and I don't think we have much people. Well, we don't have much people that still speak the language. Hence, that was given to us. English was our first language there, and still continue to be. Then, I haven't seen anybody speaking the language, or maybe only the elders, and we could probably count those people as well. So, growing up in Maruca has been one of the most exciting thing that I ever lived. Some of the challenges we faced growing up, we will talk about that later down, I guess, Mike. So that's basically about myself. That's it.
Thank you, Don. Very interesting indeed. And indeed, as we go on, we will talk a little bit more about your experiences growing up in Maruca. So now we'll just have Judy Winter from Shelton tell us a little bit about who she is. Judy.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Judy Winter. I'm a Wapichana girl. I'm from the village of Shelton, which is located in the deep south Rupununi. I am 17 years old. We'll be 18 in a few days. And I'm really happy to be joining you all today. As I said before, I'm from the village of Shelton, which is a small community. It is actually the largest community in the South Rupununi. And I had a happy childhood where it was nature-based. I can just remember fun times of my childhood. I attended a Shelton nursery school, a Shelton primary school, and a Shelton secondary school. And now I work with the South Rupununi District Council. I work as the youth coordinator, and I am really enjoying what I do today. I guess that's all for me for now.
Thank you, Judy. And I'm happy that you have joined us. And for those who don't know, Judy is actually joining us from Shelton. With connectivity, there's so much more we can do. And I believe it's one of the things that we should really expand on in terms of increasing connectivity to interior locations where we would be able to communicate with persons like Judy, who is in the community. Because I believe there is so much we can learn from each other. And, having young people, especially, Judy just, told us that she's 17-year-old. And, it's very admirable for, a young person of that age to be coordinating youth activities in in the SRDC. The SRDC is made up of several communities, the South Rupununi District Council. I'm not sure if you would have seen a few days ago, she was featured in a newspaper in terms of telling her story. And, it's very, very admirable that persons like this want to be there and talking about Indigenous peoples, because we live the life, we grow the life, we know the life. So now I'll have Dr. Laura George to introduce herself to us.
Thank you, Michael. Dombarong, my fellow panelists here today, Dawn, my colleague. Judy, it's nice to see you here. And Michael, as Michael just said, at such a young age, you're very brave, you're very confident. So I'm really happy to meet someone like you. And I hope your confidence and your enthusiasm never gets, discouraged. Dombarong, I am Laura. My background would show you that I am from Pibilipai, a beautiful village up in the Kukui River. So as Michael said, I am Kukuigo. I come from the people of the Kukui River, the Kapong Nation. I am the eldest of 4 children. Well, 4 adults now. So, yes, so I come from Philippi, Pibilipai, Bongura, I am from Philippi. And I'm happy to be here to give you just a bits on our way of life and our life as Indigenous peoples in our villages. Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Laura. It's good that you have Pibilipai in the background there. I went once to Pibilipai and it was really nice. I actually enjoyed the kukui. It's one of the things that I miss being in Georgetown, having a nice, fresh water, a river that I can swim. It just rejuvenates you. So I really loved spending some time in Pibilipai some years ago. So today, Laura, panelists, Don, Judy, we want to talk a little bit about growing up. And I'm happy that, Laura, you actually have a background image of your village there. I want you to tell us a bit more about what it was like growing up in Pibilipai. Tell us your memories of being a child coming up. What was it like? And what are some of the things that stick with you even to this day?
Okay, I would say I had a very happy childhood. I think I heard Judy say that earlier. I had a very happy childhood where our mornings were cold mornings. You spoke about the rejuvenating Kukui River. It's very cool, it's beautiful up to today. And I hope it remains that way, for so much time to come. Our nights were cold. We slept in hammocks. We had beds, whoever had beds. But for us, our mornings would be, our thing was you go have your bath. If the waters were too cold, if the river, the place was too cold for us, my mom would make sure she lovingly heat up water for us to bathe with. And my dad, so we would all have to have a bath because it's to prepare to go to school. And it was also to prepare for when my dad, to wait for my dad to arrive from fishing. My dad was a devoted fisherman that went like literally every morning. At some point, I don't know, maybe it might have been around 4 o'clock, to go fish because Laura George would not eat her cassava bread without any meat or fish. No matter how hard I tried. Perhaps looking back, I might, as an outside adult, I might say, my God, I might have been selfish, but I just could not help myself. I had to have meat or fish to eat with my cassava bread. And so my father made sure, my parents, my mom and dad made sure that there was always food that we would eat and not be hungry. I mean, in addition to that, you have your bananas, you have your whatever fruits that you get in the farm, you have the provision. Provision is not my favorite up to today. But yeah, cassava bread and the tuma and the kasiri. And yes, whatever porridge or tea they make, that was also part of it. I think our adults really do not, I think mostly up to today, do not see or consider tea or porridge as food, because food for us meant the kasiri, the heavy meal that our adults are going to work hard in the farms, and the children are going to school. So they had to make sure that we were also provided for us, for our day at school. So for breakfast, it was fish. Lunch, it was the fish from the tuma. That was my lunch, which I would share from time to time with others. I don't know if my classmates then from that time would remember that, but I remember that was part of what we did like every day. In the afternoon, well, perhaps I should speak about our day in the school. The day in the school meant during lunchtime, we either rushed running to the riverside, to the Kukui River, undressing ourselves well on the way, running to see who would get the first plunge, and just be there during the lunch hour. Sometimes we we went over the lunch hour because we were just having fun, and we forgot it was an hour already. And by the time we realize an hour is up, when we get back to school, our hair is wet, our eyes are red, and our clothes are wet because we just put it on back and rushing back to the school. The bell has already rung. So it's either some sort of penalty for us. It's either we get some
licks.
We stay outside in the line and that kind of thing. But it was just so much fun that we just didn't mind about it at all. In the afternoon, it was similar, at least for me and some friends. It was just a regular that we go back up to the river and we swim our way up all along the bank of the Kukui River, our clothes in our hands, looking for fish or crab or shrimp that we could find in those, what we call it again? The wood that's in the water at some holes.
Waywak.
Yeah, so we call it something I can't remember, but that was just part of our childhood, and I don't know if many families, I wouldn't say that many families had fish every day, but what I do know is that my parents always made sure that we had, and I just felt like we were short of nothing. We were not hungry. We were always healthy. If we were not well, my mom would make sure that she used whatever leaves, whatever bush to boil for us to drink and for us to bathe with. She does it up to today, for many others. But that was part of my childhood. That's how we lived. And it was just a happy, very rich childhood for me, I would say. For us, it's my family. And as I said, I'm the eldest. But I think many of my family members might have treated me like I was the youngest, So yeah, that was like what my days were like. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and then going to the farm on the weekends. It was part of it, or either I was left home because they felt I couldn't walk quickly enough, but I would go to the farms with them, So those were like what my childhood was like. Very lovely, I never forgot, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And indeed, just listening to you, it really brought back some of my own childhood memories, and especially the school days. When we all, during break time, you go to the river to swim. And yes, like you said, sometimes the bell is ringing and you're now getting out of the river with your eyes red. But it was all fun. I mean, yes, of course, we did face some punishment from the teachers, but I think ultimately it was a fun time for us, because I also remember like one of the things, and we used to kind of use this as a getaway to go swim as well, is that there were times when there wasn't like any chalk in the school. So at the riverside, there is clay. So we used to go on the pretext of making chalk for the school. We go and swim, but we also come back with a couple of clay chalks that we give to the teachers. So, that's your excuse for going and swim. So I think all of these things kind of help us and, to shape who we are today. But yeah, it was fun indeed. So I saw Judy, she went off, but she's back now. So I'd like to give her the chance to tell us a little bit about herself. I mean, we know that Judy is young and she is still actually in the community at this time. But Judy, can you tell us a little bit more, like since your childhood, well, you're still pretty young, you're still, a child, growing up, what is it like, or what has it been like for you? What are the really good things about our culture, which, really resonates with you?
Well, as I have stated in the article a few days back, I think I had a really rich childhood in my village. All the memories just keep rushing back to me now. Well, my village is it's in the savannah, but it's surrounded by a few creeks, and I live right next to one. And I grew up as being the youngest in my family. I think I was pretty spoiled from a very young age. I was the baby of the family. Anyway, so I grew up with my 4 brothers and my sister, and I think they have really helped build this pride in me of being a Wapchan. And I can say that I can have a conversation with you in Wapchan, and I'm really proud of that. I grew up mostly in the farms. I would spend holidays, school holidays and so on in the farms where my parents are farmers, and they would plant a lot of bananas, a lot of pine, a lot of all the other produce. And we would go there on weekends, on holidays, and spend weeks in the farm. And I don't think I have ever missed the village that much during those times. I also grew up among my cousins, which are a lot of them. And we would invent our own games, especially during the moonlights. We would come to one place because our custom is to gather at one of the houses, and you would bring something to share with each other. For example, we'd carry our starch porridge. We would carry our corns to go and roast. We would carry our pepper pots, fish pepper pots, lava pepper pots, and so on. And that would be one of the most enjoyable times I remember, especially during the moonlight. And the moonlights are really pretty out here. It's really breathtaking out here because you can see the stars and you can actually see the moon, and just sitting out there with your family laughing and the cool breeze blowing. It's really just happiness. I would say that's happiness for me. And one of my favorite times of the year, as I stated in the article, is the fruit seasons. And all year round, we have a lot of fruits here. Like, for example, we would have the jamun season, we would have the whitey season, and every day after school, we would go rushing there just to gather first and climb up the tree before anybody else would come, and all these things. And we have a lot of mango trees here, and it's free, and you can just go and pick some and make your jam, make your porridge, make your drink, and so on. Let me see
Yeah, thank you, Judy. Indeed, I think one of the last things you said, it's about the fruits being free. I think that's one of the things we take for granted. Coming to Georgetown, you got to buy mangoes for a couple of dollars, and there in High Shelton you can pass and pick some, or you can pick up some. And I think this is one of the things that I truly miss about the interior as well, in that you can go to your neighbor and get fruits, without having to worry, hey, you got to pay for it and that kind of stuff. And I think it's one of the that sometimes really help us to realize that there is a difference in cultures as well. I mean, it's so easy to, well, to survive down there. And I've heard of people, foreigners coming and actually going into our villages and just living off the fruits because it's free. They don't have to spend any money to get fruits and things like that. So indeed, you know, things are really nice. And of course, like going to the farms, like you spoke about, spending time away, you know, you don't miss the village because you're out there, you know, you're hunting, fishing. It's really nice. I mean, I remember my time as a kid growing up as well. You know, we couldn't wait for holiday time, because when it was holiday time and school is out, we go down river, we go to Kaichor and we fish all holiday long. We're down there having fun, you know, eating fish, hunting, doing so many things. And I think all of this sometimes we take for granted, because the other thing is that, you know, it gives that space where you can interact with your family. You're there with your family, you know, your extended family, grandmother, uncles, everybody, you know, in this one big party in this place, you know, hunting and fishing together. I think it's one of the things that binds us together, and it's so much fun. I can't like just, you know, recall none of that time being, you know, not fun. It was always been fun, you know, doing those things. So we have heard from Judy. We have Don. Don, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and, you know, some of those great memories that you would have made as a child up in Horodaya, in Moruca? Can you please?
Sorry, thank you, Michael. Again, so I had a very exciting and wonderful childhood growing up in Horodaya, Santa Rosa. Everybody knows it as Moruca. But like, I have so many stories, so I'll just share like probably 2 or so. But growing up in Moruca, it has been very different, I would say. We had, well, I grew up with my brothers, and later on I have like get my sisters and so, but they were very small. So mostly I would I had shared my childhood with my 2 big brothers and my smaller brother. My parents, starting with my parents, they would have provided everything that we thought we needed at that time. Then they thought that we needed at that time. And one of the best thing they would have provided for me is, you know, the support to education. And for me, they always thought that I should be involved in culture. So my mom signed me up without telling me that what I'm going to do. So she just told me that, oh, there is a group, a culture group, and maybe you will be interested. And she just took me. And I think that was the stepping stone for me to get involved in culture. Then I fell in love with it, and I was always proud to represent the community or the school or maybe the church at one point as well. So I recall that our church would have started the Arawak lessons, and it was just like probably four young people, well, kids that actually were interested in learning the language. But it didn't last that long. I can't recall why, but it was really good. It was a good step, and that's something that I think that the community can probably retry again, you know, to get people involved in their language. However, the culture there, the people there are very much welcoming. They're very nice people, but we hardly find, growing up there, I hardly find like the children would have been involved in the culture, you know, showcasing it and stuff. And then, you know, when we start dancing, the Mari Mari, well, we call it Banchikili, right? They would laugh at us and be like, oh, you know, you're going out there and you're dancing in your, you say, a straw skirt, or, you know. But I was very proud of that. And I think that's one of my fondest moments that I lived in growing up there. And I always try to represent that, or try to keep that culture within me then. My parents, again, they were very strict with us. So we didn't, for me, I didn't have my own way. It was always their way. Mommy had me involved in so many activities. Is either in the church or the school, or or free time at home. She would tell us that, oh, our only playtime, it used to be on a Saturdays from 1 to probably 3 in the afternoon. That's our only playtime we would have. Other than that, Sundays we normally go to church, and then after church, we have Sunday school, and then we return home. It's lunch, and then like 2 o'clock, she would tell me, "Oh, you have to press all your school uniform." So I had my duties cut out, and going to the farm was very, I won't say exciting, because I used to always lazy to wake up at 5:30 to go to the farm under the cassava. Sorry, under the cassava trees. Then it used to be really cold, and then the dew just dripping on you. So I used to always be vexed that I have to go to the farm. Looking back at that now, I still want to do that, but then time, I live out here now, so yeah, time don't permit me. But it was very exciting growing up as kids as well. Judy mentioned, the fruit trees was one of our, the biggest thing for us this season then, especially mango season. Because where I live, we have like very few mango trees. So like, we would wake up early as 4:30, as we would say, we would go and raid the trees, right? At 4:30, you would see us with our lamps or torchlight. And then if we don't want our cousins to see, we just sneak out and we did dim in the light, just looking to find the mangoes. It was I think it's one of the fondest moments again to, getting up at 4:30 to go and look for mangoes or akuro. So and then I don't know, but I always find this here that I'm always a team leader within a crew or within classmates. I will always tell them about. I will always be proud of where I'm from. I'm never ashamed to say anything, And mommies always say that going to school, I always like friends and invite them over to share whatever she cooked. And so in primary school, I had four friends, like really close friends. We're still great friends up to today. And they're very supportive up to now. So, but I would always invite them over to come over and eat lunch. And I don't care what mommy cook, So I wouldn't tell her anything. I just show up at the house with 4 friends. So one day she said, you should tell me that you're bringing your friends in tomorrow so I can cook something. I was like, no, it's okay. And the thing about my friends is that they would have enjoyed whatever mommy cooked. Whatever she cooked, they would enjoy. I think something that's what she taught us, like to share whatever we have with people. Doesn't matter what you eat in, you offer, So back to that again, but school life was really great as well too, And I think that we could have done so much more, or we could do so much more within the village, when it comes to culture. And it's very sad to know that I don't know to speak my language, and that's something I always wanted to do, to speak it. I listen to everybody speak their language and be like, wow, But I think that's basically growing up in Morocco. And I always encourage my cousins or my siblings, them, to do better. And our house used to always be the house that every child or every kid around the area normally come. And, they would come, but they would be scared because mommy had us very strict, tied into so much things. So we barely had little time. And even to swimming, she never wanted us to go and swim. So she would tell us, oh, you have half an hour. And this was not like every Sunday. And Sunday was the only day we could have got to go and swim. If we get away, it was a hibiscus whip waiting for you to get some good lash. But even that, she would send us to swim. And I think the only reason why she sent us to swim is because one time we were coming home from school, me and my brothers, and a couple of other people, kids in our canoe, and there was a boat speeding and it sank us. And I couldn't swim, and neither my brother. So we were sitting in one bench. So he held on me and we nearly died. And I think that was the only thing that pushed my mom to send us to swim So I hear everybody talking about going and swim. It was really nice, yeah, but then we didn't have the permission to go and swim. She's always scared about us drowning. So, but I talk like a lot, but I had some really good memories growing up as a child in Morocco. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And indeed, I mean, I think for us is that in terms of the swimming is that, that's where we bathe. So it's like, we didn't have pipes up at the house or rainwater and things like that to bathe with. We bathe every day in the river, right? So, we would go with our parents too to bathe in the mornings or in the evenings and things like that. But we also go at our own time as well. Because I think for us as well, like growing up, I think one of the things I liked was that, we used to go catch fishes. And one of the ways we used to catch fishes was to take those wine bottles that has the indented bottom. We would bore the bottom and we would put cassava bread in the bottle, and then we go and we dive and we push it in the earth, and then the fishes would go in and they can't come out, and we would catch those nice fine fishes. And it used to be fun. We used to enjoy things like that. But I think something that really reminded me of my mom was that, you spoke a little bit about how, we shared everything that we had, we shared, and it doesn't matter how little bit you have, we always shared. And, sometimes I tell my kids now, I said, when I was growing up, one boiled egg could have been divided into 12 pieces for 12 of us, right? I said, now you having 2, 3, 4 eggs by yourself, growing up, it wasn't that easy for us. Yes, there were good times, but there were also bad times. I remember times when we did not even have cassava, and, everybody knows cassava is our staple diet. We make cassava bread, we make farine, we make parakari, we make kisiri, and other things from cassava. And when there is a lack of cassava in the village, it's really hard on us. And I remember as well, going through some of those times when it was really difficult on us. We didn't have. But then I also remember, we used to say, like, my mom, she was like a magician. We would search the house and we wouldn't find cassava bread. But when it's dinner time or when it's lunchtime, mommy would go in that same house and come back out with cassava bread, and we couldn't find it. So, it's one of the things that really helped shape me as a person today, in that I would have lived the life, I would have lived the culture. I see sometimes people screwing up their face about some of the things that we eat. And only a few days ago, I posted something I didn't even know, there were some new meanings to certain words in these days. But I was posting about eating mountain chicken. All right. But, we grew up in that life. Some of the best times, the fun times, was like going to catch frogs. I mean, there are different flavors of frogs, right? And, sometimes people just see frog and they think about toads. No, we don't eat toads. We have different types of frogs that we eat, right? And I think one of the good things about it is that each frog has its own flavor, right? People don't notice we have frogs with different flavors. So when it's like the season, when we cook them, you try to get to the pot first because you want to get the best tasting one. So, it used to be fun. It used to be really good. I also remember times when, we used to have, like the more worm season, right? More worms, it's some little caterpillars that live on the mora tree. And when it's their season, they're like maybe like an inchworm, like an inch long. But then when you smoke them, they used to be like really good. So, we'd be going to school with these smoked worms in our pockets, right? So while the class is ongoing, you're snacking on your thing, and you're sharing with your friends as well, right? So they were really, really, really good times. And I think I don't regret today having that chance, having that opportunity to grow up in my culture, to learn the traditions. I had this really nice uncle who basically taught me quite a lot about his about our ways of life. We used to go hunting with him, and he would use binas. He would teach us about binas and different things about tracks, and how to get animals, which animals you find where, and things like that, and how to make arrows in the bush. Let's say, for example, you're lost. How do you find your way back? Things like these. He would have taught us. So I know many times people talk about us and say, hey, you know, and they would say, well, people's chubidi, or, you know, that kind of things like that, because, oh, we don't know about Georgetown, you know. Yes, fine, we don't know about the city. You know, you drop an Amerindian and indigenous person in the city, it might be difficult for them to move around because they don't understand the ways. But also, you know, take someone from the coast and drop them in the jungle, and, you know, it will be hard for them. So it's one of the things that I like to tell people, that, you know, we may not have a paper to say, you know, that we're qualified in this way or that way, but we have so much knowledge about the forest, so much knowledge about nature, because we would have grown, we live with nature, because everything that happens on the ground affects us in one way or the other. And I think one of the things I really look at, for example, we have this climate change thing happening now. As indigenous peoples, we're already feeling the impacts of climate change. How, you may ask? Well, the seasons are changing, right? The planting season, our farming seasons are changing. We no longer have a stable weather pattern that we can depend on for planting. But not just that, even the animals, the spawning seasons and all of these things are changing. So we have disruptions which are impacting us directly right now. And it's one of the things that people may not realize, because they don't live off the ground. But because we live off the ground, we live with nature, we are the ones who are feeling it already. So I'm really happy that, you know, I would have had that chance, that opportunity to grow up, to live my life as an indigenous person, you know, growing up in my village, the village of Chinapau. So I want to talk a little bit more, Laura. You would have come to the city, you know, from your little village. I know, you know, you said you came for schooling in Georgetown. Can you tell me a little bit more about what life is in the city, and, you know, how things may have changed, and how you would have adapted to this new way of life? I think Laura is gone. Or maybe I can ask Don. I mean, yes, you have come to the city. You know, how different is it, like the city from your village, and what are the good things, what are the not so good things, and what you wouldn't trade for the other, things like that?
Wow. Sort of like a very tough question, but then adapting out here, for me, it was like very hard, because I never lived away from my parents, and I didn't, at that time, I didn't know anyone as well too. I remember when I entered GSA in 2007, you know, that was like a different feeling away from home. The food was different, you know, and again, taking me back to growing up back home, I never liked vegetables, greens. So at GSA, they would only cook a lot of greens, and so it was hard. It was hard adapting, but then I overcome those challenges. And one of the things that always stick with me is to be proud of who you are. And in GSA, people would normally discriminate against you. You know, you come from the bush, you don't know anything, and so but it was, let me see how to put it. It was hard, and I recall too, in one of the class. So my lecturer would normally ask me in the class, right? It was only like a couple years after I thought about it, and I was like, he was very, you know, probably discriminating against me at the same time, because he would ask me boldly in the class, are you an Amerindian living under the Amerindian Act? And this is in 2007. The Amerindian Act only passed in 2006, you know. So he would always ask me that question at every class and say, are you an Amerindian living under the Amerindian Act? So I would be like, you know, at loss, and at that point, I never read the Amerindian Act too, so I didn't know. And that would have driven me, you know, to say that, oh, you need to step up, you need to read a bit more. So that was one of the challenges coming out to live out here then. And one of the good thing is that I was exposed to a lot of opportunities. Some I would have took for granted as well, so, and I didn't take it because of various reasons. I would not mention them. But the opportunities is one of the best things that came out of moving from Maruka to come out here. And, one of the bad thing is that, I'm out here away from my family. I don't really get that much time to go and spend with mom. So, and I do miss her, like some days I would come home from work, I had a really bad day or a really good day, and I would so want to talk about it, like face to face with her and ask her for her guidance, and she's not here, so I would call, and then sometimes she'd be very busy. Mom is always in the farm, she's always cooking, or she's always doing cassava. And, she would do it for a living, and that was one of the really good thing. And she's well known for her katakura and smoked chicken. Everybody's normally asked for it, and I think that for me, she makes the best fly in the country. I would always boast about my mother's fly and her food, that nobody can cook like her. I don't know, Mike, I would ever took any fly to the office or anywhere for you to taste, but I promise you that you will get some this month, and some of the best fly in the country. But that was one of the bad thing. And then sometimes I would tell her, Mom, come and spend a month. And recently she was here, and the lady even spent a week, and it's like she had to go home, and I asked her why. She's like, the farm, she need cassava, she need money. On the other hand, because she did it for a living, and during the pandemic would have stepped in and stuff, she would not have sold those stuff within the last like 5 months or so. So I think she missed that, and she went home back. But then that was one of the bad thing with us, communicating and stuff, living back there and here at the same time. It's really hard. I missed the next question that you would have asked.
Yeah, but that's fine. So I'll just one of the others. So I know, like listening to you, I would have heard quite a lot in terms of, like, even for me as well, coming to Georgetown. I started secondary school when I was like 10 years old, so I was, pretty young. But coming to Georgetown as well, really, like, it made me realize that we have different worlds that we exist in, if you want to put it like that. I know things are much different now in that, like, some communities you have access to internet and things like that. So more exposure and things are changing. So I asked Judy about that just now as well, in terms of how it is now, that they have access to these types of services. How does it affect or impact her livelihood, her way of life? All right. But for me, back in the days, we didn't have communication. There used to be these high frequency radios that you can make contact with Georgetown. Sometimes you talk and everybody hears your business, but that's what it used to be like. But for me, coming to Georgetown really made me realize that there were different worlds that we live in. And I usually say that, there is a fence, because there is one world and then there is a whole totally different world. Our cultures are different. The way we do things, it's different. And I think for me, coming to high school, coming to Georgetown, it was really hard for me to adapt into the new environment, because I had to learn things all over again. I couldn't understand some reason why people were behaving in certain ways and things, but so I had to learn all of this. But I think one of the striking thing, however, that always reminds me, like when I came to Georgetown for the first time, it was the smell of truck exhaust, the fumes from the truck, and also ice cream, Demico ice cream. So I came from the airport, I went straight to Demico, and well, Daddy took me, right? And I had Demico ice cream. So those are the two things. Up to this day, I love Demico vanilla ice cream. I'm not doing an ad for them or promoting them in any way, but I love Demico ice cream, the vanilla flavor, because that's probably the first ice cream I had in my life, right? But the thing is, I had to adapt to a whole new environment. And then being placed at a school, I went to President's College, a boarding school, where I was away from family, away from everything. It was pretty difficult. And I had to learn And, you know, the other day I made a post, I said, you know, I did face discrimination in school, right? And, you know, people were asking me to, well, say more about it, where and how, because they couldn't see and understand why. I said, maybe one day I will tell it, right? But indeed I did. As an Amerindian, it's not easy. And I think this is something that, you know, we really need to talk more about. And I'm glad that, you know, people are beginning to open up more about racial divisions and tensions, because as Indigenous peoples, you know, we face a lot of discrimination, right? And we need to start being more open about it and start discussing it, because I think that's the only way we can really address the issue. So, Judy, I know that you're young, you're growing up, your village has telephone, your village has internet access, you know, through satellite connections. Um, how has that impacted your culture, if any at all? I mean, what are the good things about that? What are the bad things about that? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so unlike all of you, I attended a school in the hinterland, and that is in my own village. And it was not until I entered secondary school that, you know, I really thought about technology and the modern world and, you know, what's out there, because it was just when I entered secondary school that I actually got exposed to it. Because in my nursery and primary school days, I never really thought about it, or never really thought that it could have impact their school, where we had to do some classes, we had to do some work on submit our projects through technology. And eventually when our school got the internet, then, you know, I really like thought about it in that way. Well, people always tell us that, you know, in the modern technology has good sides and bad sides, good effects, bad effects. And it is up to us to really know how to utilize it and use it to our best advantage. My parents bought a computer for me when I was in third form, and it was I was one of the persons who actually got, you know, a computer when I was in school, and I had to eventually learn about it and so on. And when I joined social media, you know, it just opened my eyes to see that, you know, there are a lot of other cultures out there. And it is up to me as an individual to make my decisions and to really uphold my culture, if that is what I want. And yes, as I said before, that it is really up to you, and you will get exposed to a lot of other cultures out there, the so-called modernization, the so-called civilization. And technology can actually help in that. And what we as young people should use the technology to our advantage in efforts to protect our cultural heritage, because I as one wouldn't want to let go of my unique culture. And I would like to share my culture with the rest of the Guyanese society and the rest of the world also. So I think that technology has good sides and bad sides, as I said, and I'm really emphasizing on that. And so we should use technology to the best of our advantage.
Thank you, Judy. You know, I think I can talk with you all day, because, you know, listening to you, you know, as a young person, sharing these thoughts, it really inspires me that, you know, we have young people who are ready to take on the world. You know, young people who are ready to really continue teaching and sharing our culture. You know, it's amazing, and I really like it. And I think maybe, you know, we can set another session just to talk with you about, you know, some of these things, because I believe, it is important that we talk about it, and especially getting it from a young Indigenous person's perspective, to really understand how is it that we can use technology to share our culture, how we can use technology to promulgate, as you know, the Constitution says, promulgate our culture. And I believe that you have the perfect voice, you have the perfect opportunity to do that. And I really appreciate that, you know, you have seen it fit to be doing this, because I believe it's critical that as young people, our culture and traditions continue. And I see you as, you know, one of those persons who can help us to take this forward. So Laura, welcome back from Pibilipai. We were talking about how it is, you know, now that you have come to Georgetown, you know, what changes did you have to make, and what are some of the good things, maybe some of the bad things, you know, what wouldn't you exchange for the other, and things like that. So can you just share a bit about us, like your experience in Georgetown as a person since you came?
Okay, thanks, Michael. So, well, I think we need to have a separate conversation about that particular part, you know, how it impacts our children who travel to Georgetown to live with strangers, away from parental guidance, away from anything familiar, away from love and friendships and freedom. It has its own phases, you know, like when you come, people call it, you know, you have a culture shock. For me, looking back, it would more be like it was just a very traumatic experience, you know. So I think you guys mentioned earlier about, you know, the discrimination and the racist terms and everything that we have to face. We always have to face when we come to Georgetown. So I think we need a separate conversation for that, to talk about why it is not right, and also to talk about from our end how we also how receptive we have been to other ethnic groups, whether in our communities, in our daily lives, whether in our communities or in Georgetown. So I think that's another thing we'll need to talk about some other time. For now, though, I would say coming to Georgetown would have been my dad bringing me. I was in tears. I didn't want to come away to Georgetown. I had never been away from my village, probably lived with my grandparents, spent some time with my grandparents and great-grandparents, but a total displacement, I would say, to Georgetown was not something that I was prepared for at all. Nevertheless, what I would say, because I know time is up, but what I would say is, coming to Georgetown, I know to speak the English language. My father wanted to make sure, my mom says she too, they wanted to make sure that I speak the English language and I'm able to communicate with others, understand them, and also be able to speak for others. That was always my father's dream. So when I was a child, I only knew that I spoke differently from the others around me, who, well, at that time then, you know, looking back, I knew now that they were talking our language, our Kapong language. And I felt very uncomfortable talking different from the others who were talking another language. So I gravitated, perhaps one term I might have used at one point would have been, I just rebelled, like with my dad, that I don't want to speak this language. I want to speak like these people around me, who I know, our people, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-grandparents. And so I did not forget the English language, but I chose to talk in my language, which is our first language, the Kapong language. And that was how I was able to really talk with everybody. Coming to Georgetown, so when I came to Georgetown, it was not that I didn't understand any English or anything like that, but having to live with strangers was something totally new to me. A different way of life, a different approach to how you treat children was something that I experienced when I first came to Georgetown. But I am forever grateful, I would say, to have that experience as well. Sometimes the things we take for granted in our communities, the clean rivers, you know, the beautiful trees, going to the farm, sometimes we believe it's so hard. But here in Georgetown, like there's nowhere else to go unless you have the money to go. And so, and the freedom, you know, the freedom is priceless back home. One of the things that happened in Georgetown was I was taken in by complete strangers who probably I did during those times did their best to make sure that I was safe, I was fed under the circumstances, and however I had a shelter under the circumstances. One thing I did tell my mom though, so before I go to my mom was, so I am forever grateful for those opportunities, for those experiences. Sometimes along the way you feel like it really wanted to break you down, but later on now you can say, it was really just preparing you for your adult life perhaps, you know. So that's part of life, I guess. But one thing I did tell my mom, like quite later on in my adult years was, you know, Mom, I totally appreciate what you and Dad did. I know you did it with all good intentions. And I was saying that while looking at other teenagers in my community, in my village, just having fun, enjoying each other, enjoying their friendships, and looking at, sorry, excuse me. and looking at the children enjoying the river and the fun time, you know, the climbing on the trees, the swinging on the branches, and you just going fishing. Might be a tiny fish you catch, but it's your own, you know. All those experiences that I believe our young people take for granted and think that, you know, somewhere out in the city of Georgetown, life must be much more beautiful or much more enjoyable or much more worthwhile. I would say, I told my mom, I said, I'm really sorry that I missed out on these lovely times during my teenage years because I lost those times. So, you know, yeah. So I don't regret coming to Georgetown, but I really also wish I had a lot more time in my village because I went home only once a year. I think I didn't say that. During my school years in Georgetown, I saw my parents, my family, my everything only once per year. So I think that was, maybe that was where I felt, you know, I lost some things that our young people today take for granted. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Laura. Indeed, you know, it was hard, and you know, coming to be in Georgetown, you know, being away from family, being away from everything that you know, it was so difficult. And you know, just having the chance to go home during the holidays, you know, we always look forward to that. But I know it was difficult. But we're at the end. I know we can continue to talk a little bit more, and you know, we can go on talking. But like I said earlier when we started, that this will be a weekly activity. Every Friday over lunch, we will talk. You know, we will have new panelists, and we will talk about various aspects of, you know, Indigenous perspectives. But before we go today, you know, one of the things I want to tell you is that we are going to put on a video challenge this year, and we're putting this on because we know it's Indigenous Heritage Month, and it's celebrated every year in the month of September. But we want to put this video competition on, and it's open to all Indigenous peoples living here in Guyana. We would like to have a 2 to 3 minutes video, you know, talking a bit about Indigenous peoples' resilience to COVID and things like that. But it must be 2 to 3 minutes long. You're going to post it. We will create a page, a special page where you will post your videos, and then you can share that video to get as many likes as you can, so that, you know, we can have a video that gets a prize for the most likes. But we will be giving prizes for this. We want to give the best youth or the youngest person to provide a video to us. We'll give that person a prize. We want to give the best female a prize. We want to give the general prizes for, you know, who we will have a judge and panel who will judge on the videos that are submitted. But we want these videos to be in by the 25th of September so that we can have results available on the 30th. So on the 30th of September, we will provide the results of the competition. All right, so we will post more information on our page in terms of what are the requirements. We know that everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have smartphones these days. And we believe that you can use the technology, like Judy was saying earlier, use the technology to promulgate our culture, use the technology to give some positive vibes, right? We know many times there are situations where people use the technology for bad, but we want to use this in a good way. All right, so we know some of you have cell phones, use your cell phones to make short video clips, 2 to 3 minutes long, about the resilience that inspires, the resilience that inspires. We're talking about us as Indigenous peoples, how inspiring, how resilient we have been as a people, even in this time of COVID, right? We know, we hear stories of people using bush medicines, for example, to treat COVID. These are stories that we can tell and we can share. So we will post the full guidelines to the competition on our page. So follow our page, the Amerindian Peoples Association, and we will have more guidelines available that you can participate and encourage your neighbor to participate, encourage your friends. I know many times in our communities, we have friends, we just go sit under the mango tree and we watch all sorts of videos. Encourage them, say, hey, can we just make a video on this? Can we do a video? If you want to do a little skit or something about something, this is your chance. Encourage everyone that you know, Indigenous peoples in and around Guyana, to participate in this challenge. And like I said, follow our page and you will get more information in terms of the full guidelines and how this is going to roll forward. And we will post that today. So you can follow today and you can have more information on that. So thank you so much for joining us over lunch today. I don't know about you, but I've been drinking some parakari from my bowl, my bash. But get some fly, get some parakari, some kajili, whatever you have, and share with your friends and celebrate our month. Well, we say it's our month, and it's a month of celebration. But remember, we celebrate our heritage all year round. It's not just about 1 month only. I know this month was specially set aside, but we know as Indigenous peoples, we celebrate all year round. And I always try to have my parakari or my farine and everything I always eat, and it's always there. All right, so thank you for joining us, and do join us next Friday at the same time, right here on our Amerindian Peoples Association page. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. So thank you.